We have some news on immigration. It's making its way around social media at the moment. This is a pretty big story. Take a look at this. Lawyers say they can't find parents of 545 migrant children that were separated under the Trump administration. Yeah, that's a big deal. The child separation policy is a big deal. It's actually been a very prominent issue, I feel like, featured under the Trump administration by the media. Don't separate them almost under any circumstances. I mean, in some circumstances, I guess they have no choice, but as much as possible, stay on the side of don't separate them and leave it like that, because you can't have this continuing to happen. 545 migrant children and they can't find their parents. I mean, that's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Now, there's another part to this conversation which is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but I bring it up because it's factual, and so I got to give you the truth. But this, to be fair, hey, MSNBC covered this. You could see the MSNBC stamp on the bottom right there. But this is a little-known fact. ICE removals under Obama are way more than they are under Trump. So you could see there, Obama's first term and the numbers, you got nearly 400,000 almost every year. In 2012, it was over 400,000, right? And then Trump, you see he's nowhere near it. Trump has deported way fewer undocumented immigrants than Obama did. That's the truth. They didn't make this up. This is real. Now, there's a question as to how did this happen? The answer is interesting. Apparently, it's not that Trump doesn't want to deport more, but what's happened is there are a lot of local police that are refusing to work with ICE. And they say the reason that they're doing that is because when they were doing that all the time, there would be a giant increase in crime because undocumented immigrants were then afraid to call the cops when they saw a crime happen. Because they know, hey, if I call the cops, I might get deported. And so there's an increase in crime when ICE works with police departments and police turn undocumented immigrants over to ICE. Because then the undocumented immigrants do whatever they can to stay out of the public's eye, and so they don't call the cops under any circumstance. And so when you talk to a lot of these officers, they say, listen, it is what it is. We have to have a situation where we don't work with ICE, because if we work with ICE, crime spikes in our community, so we can't have that. So that's their reasoning, and that's interesting, isn't it? I find that's like a really fascinating dynamic that came about. But yeah, virtually the entire time under Obama, they were working with ICE. Police departments were working with ICE, and the deportations were through the roof. And under Trump, they've largely stopped working with ICE. And so even though Trump has the will to deport more than Obama, it hasn't manifested as a result of that. Now, the other thing is, so for Obama, a very high percentage of the people he deported were criminals. Not just undocumented immigrants and their crime is being an undocumented immigrant. No, they were actually, they had criminal records. Now, they should have been more specific with it and said, hey, nonviolent criminals we won't touch, but anybody who is a violent criminal, yes, you can and should. They didn't do that, I don't think. But apparently, for the year 2015, Obama's last year, 91% of people removed were previously convicted of a crime. So he was deporting criminals. Now, under Trump, even though he has fewer deportations, he is not prioritizing criminals. He's deported many non-criminals. So that's an issue where, even though Obama deported more, I think his approach is more reasonable than Trump's, which is just almost like I'll deport whoever. Again, even though he's deported fewer people, who those people are, I think it's worse. So, that's a really interesting fact as well. So, listen, the fact of the matter is there's a reason why Obama was called the deporter-in-chief, because he deported a hell of a lot of people. That was Obama and Biden. And it is true. Listen, keep it real. As a general rule, Democrats will go right back to sleep when there's a Democratic president, and a Democratic president could start doing right-wing stuff. They won't say anything. It's just Trump brings out, the anger of these people. And even though Trump's not deporting as many people as Obama, he gets more pressure on issues involving immigration. So child separation policy has to stop. I don't know exactly what the deal is with it right now, if they did nominally stop it or whatever, but 545 migrant children separated from their parents. I'd love to see those numbers for Obama's time in office. I don't know if they exist, though. I don't know if they exist, because I'd like to compare that as well, because oftentimes when you peek under the hood, a lot of this stuff is really interesting and not exactly what you would expect. But there you have it. The record of both of them on immigration for various reasons is not too great.